To help break down the final campaign day of 2020, I want to bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns, who is in Philadelphia. All right, Caitlin, you have been here, there, and everywhere. What are the closing messages from President Trump and Joe Biden on the final day of campaigning?
Well, they are making those closing arguments here in Pennsylvania, where I have been, where we've been for the past 5 days reporting on these closing arguments. For the Trump campaign, it's all about life before the pandemic, focusing on the economy and trying to tear down his opponent. You heard him go after Dr. Anthony Fauci on the campaign trail today. It shows you how they're messaging on this pandemic. For the Biden team, their focus has been keeping this squarely on the president's handling of coronavirus. They believe that is something that voters are talking about, are thinking about, that this election will be a referendum on the president and his handling of this pandemic. Here in Pennsylvania, it offers 20 electoral votes. It was a state determined by just 44,000 votes in 2016. So their campaign schedules focused on the Keystone State suggest that they think this state is key to whoever wins the White House.
Well, according to our CBS battleground tracker, Joe Biden is leading President Trump 279 potential electoral votes to 163, but there are still 96 potential electoral votes that are considered a toss-up. So what are the key states at play for each candidate?
Well, the key battleground states in our battleground tracker include Florida, which is always a battleground, but places also like Arizona, a longtime Republican stronghold. Looks like a dead even race there at this point. Places like North Carolina also up for grabs. For the president's campaign, Florida is absolutely critical. The Biden team believes that if they're able to win Florida, that cuts off the president's path to re-election. The president has spent a lot of time there, has been campaigning there. Whole show, a dead even race there as well. Pennsylvania, as I mentioned, is key, but states like Arizona and North Carolina are also very competitive. The president is also trying to hold on to the Midwestern states that helped deliver him the presidency in 2016, but by, again, very slim margins. Places like Michigan and Wisconsin, focusing on those Midwestern states. But it really could all come down to Pennsylvania, and we may not even know the results of Pennsylvania on election night because of that influx in mail-in absentee ballots and because Pennsylvania cannot start counting those ballots until tomorrow starting at 7 a.m.
All right, so people need to be aware of that. Well, nearly 98 million Americans have already voted. That's more than 2/3 of the entire voter turnout from 2016. Our polling says the majority of early voters are Democrats, while many of the president's supporters are expected to vote in person on Election Day. Could we see another come-from-behind victory for President Trump like we saw in 2016?
Well, it's certainly what the president is hoping, and his team has argued all along that their voters will show up on Election Day. So they've been saying ignore those early vote numbers, that their voters tend to show up in person on Election Day. First, that's a kind of a risky move, especially since we've seen an uptick in coronavirus cases in the Midwest, those states that the president needs to hold to get on that path to 270. And also, Elaine, as we've been reporting on the ground here in Pennsylvania, as well as in Georgia, where we were recently, and in North Carolina and in Florida, we have met supporters of the president who are casting ballots early. So as the president derides mail-in voting, derides absentee voting, and is encouraging his voters to come on Election Day, we've talked to quite a few who have already cast their ballots in that lot as well. So that's what they're hoping for, that surge. We'll see if tomorrow that works in their advantage.
All right, well, Caitlin, several states are already involved in election lawsuits, many of them dealing with mail-in ballots. Monday, a federal judge denied a lawsuit in Texas that would have invalidated 127,000 voters. What kind of impact could these types of lawsuits have on the election, and how are the candidates addressing these issues?
Well, in that Texas case that you mentioned, that's a big deal because that means those votes will count. And the Texas Senate race was very close in 2018, and people on the ground hope that it'll be a battleground again this time around. I can say that, talking to voters in these battleground states, they know how close these races can be, and nobody is trying to take anything for granted. So these decisions in the courts are really key to making sure all those ballots count. Of course, Pennsylvania has been at the center stage for that as well. A state Supreme Court saying that ballots will be counted even if they arrive after Election Day, as long as they're postmarked by Election Day. But both sides, the Biden team and the Trump team, have whole teams of lawyers that are going to be very focused on all of this, especially in these really close races.
All right, well, finally, Caitlin, how are President Trump and Joe Biden planning to spend Election Day?
Well, President Trump, as we mentioned in her piece, will be at the White House holding an event there. That we saw him do that during the Republican National Convention over the summer. Joe Biden will be in his hometown of Delaware. Both are going to be, focused on this state of Pennsylvania, making those last-minute pitches to voters, and we'll see what they ultimately decide tomorrow, or if this extends beyond Election Day.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns there. You and your producer, Sean, have picked a great backdrop all throughout your live chat. We've been seeing people taking pictures behind you, Caitlin. A lot of enthusiastic people there, clearly. Thank you so much.
Philadelphia, you can hear the music, and it's people
definitely
know it's Election Eve.
Yes, just around the corner now. Caitlin Huey-Burns for us. Thank you.